So now we're in another part of the game that was pretty confusing for me when I first played it, because everyone was telling me that I had to go north to reach the next island. But I looked north and I couldn't find a destination. Apparently, you're supposed to go northwest instead. So that was pretty confusing. It's like what you have to do is draw a line from the island west of Haunted Ship to there to reach it. It's not as simple as just drawing a line north from Haunted Ship. And it's like, when I first played the game, I ran out of health on the way to the next level. Because again, the hovercraft sections are so cheap. It's just not fair that you can get attacked by enemies and get swarmed by them, and they can move in every direction, while you're restricted to only firing in one direction. You get overwhelmed, and there's barely any health pickups at all, as you can see. So, there's really not much you can do when you... I think you're supposed to take advantage of the spin attack a lot. And the weird thing about this is, when you run into the rocks, you don't get stopped by them, you keep going. Which isn't what happens with the Wave Cyclone, which is good. And it makes sense because the hovercraft is supposed to be hovering. But again, if it's hovering, shouldn't it hover over the rocks instead of running into them? Shouldn't it hover over the mines and the enemies? What's the point of building a hovercraft that doesn't actually hover? It should be hovering far higher than it really is. Instead, it arbitrarily decides to stay close to the water to make it arbitrarily more difficult. And not to mention, I hate the way it looks. It's a yellow and green blimp, but I don't really... So she knows what snowmen are, but she doesn't know what ice is. How? But yeah, the hovercraft stops if you don't draw the line exactly right. Even though it's supposed to go over everything. Submarine was useful here. She actually tells everyone that she can't find the Vikings. So a lot of people think that this level is pretty cool because you're finally able to snowboard in a boost gameplay. And even I was looking forward to that. But you know why this level has a lot of problems to it? Bottomless pits. I don't know why they decided to put bottomless pits in a game where you're constantly forced to move forwards. Precise platforming with forced forward momentum is fucking impossible. When I first played this level, I died 5 times within the first minute. I guess you could say that, oh, there's not that many pits, so you suck if you fall. Even though I ran past 10. But the problem is, you fall into one pit, and you start prematurely jumping when you get to the areas where the blue things will hang you down and catch you. So you jump prematurely, and then you fall to your death. So just falling into one makes you a lot more likely to fall into the others that you might not have fallen into earlier. Why are there bottomless pits in an area where you're forced to constantly move forwards and can't precise platform? Your best hope for landing on stuff precisely is to hold back on the control pad. Thank God she finally had the good sense to ditch the snowboard a minute in. But still, I had such a nightmarishly awful time with Act 1 of this level because of that goddamn snowboard, that by the end of it, I was barely boosting at all because I was so paranoid and untrusting of the level. It was like how in Act 1 of Haunted Ship, I was barely boosting at all at a certain point because I didn't trust the level not to send me to my death if I did that. Once you ditch the snowboard, it gets better. The snowboard would be a cool concept if they had nothing but alternate routes, instead of dropping you into bottomless pits to your death. They shouldn't have any pits in a level with a force forward momentum concept like that. For the most part, this game sticks to a good design philosophy of don't send you into bottomless pits if you don't do the level gimmick perfectly. This level decides to ditch that. there's a lot of problems with Act 2 as well. I feel like it's more focused on doing tricks rather than just getting a move on. Like, what's the point of giving me so many opportunities to get boost energy if it isn't really a level where I can take advantage of the boost to begin with? Like, there's not very many long stretches of land where you can take advantage of the boost for a long period of time. There's way too many opportunities to do tricks, and not enough areas where you can actually boost. So I feel like this level just pads itself out and drags on. Like, this isn't what I want to do when I'm playing a Sonic game. I want to have sections like this in a Rush game. Not sections where you constantly get sent upwards to do tricks, but like, I feel like there's just too much of that here. You got breakable ice that you just jump on top of and you break. I don't really like that. I don't like how when you do an upward trick in these sections, you suddenly can't do tricks anymore for some reason, even though it's not normally how it is. Speaking of that, a gameplay change that I like about Rush Adventure is that when you do a forward air trick, you're not locked out of doing more tricks anymore. Like, that was a frustrating thing about the forwards air trick in earlier games. If you did it by accident, you were locked out of doing other tricks. So you didn't really want to do it, even though the forwards air trick is good for, like, keeping your, like, you keep going to the right because you just did a right trick. Like, it kept the flow going. Thank goodness it didn't drop me into a bottomless pit, and there's a spring there, which is good design. But yeah, I'm not really a fan of those icicles either. I don't really like any of the gimmicks in this level. Like, this looks pretty stupid. And I don't really like the theme of this level either. There's a reason that I'm playing Ice Mountain Zone's theme here. It does such a better job of creating the atmosphere of an ice level. Oh yeah, see, this is why I don't like the icicles. Because they're so gigantic on the screen, and their screen crunch, you can't really tell what direction you're gonna have to jump off when you're done with them sometimes. So like, you're led to jump to the left a whole bunch, and then you're suddenly supposed to jump to the right. So if you jump in the wrong direction, then you'll have to go back onto the icicle, and by that point you'll be on a lower position in it. And so you might be too low on the icicle to be able to jump onto the next one, and you might slide down to your death. Again, Marine notices the Vikings there, so she's helpful. Like, would they have even found out that the Vikings were there in the first place? So did the Vikings gather a huge army against him, and that's why he froze him solid? Is that why he did it? He's so cliche and one-dimensional. Like, there's no real motive to anything he does. This is one of the worst bosses in the game. Like, minor nitpick here, I don't know why you can't just jump into the whale and that loads you into this area, rather than you stopping at an invisible wall. Like, I feel like it kind of breaks the flow a little. You can't boost in this section, which is actually good because it's a slow platforming section in a Rush game. And so it's better that you don't boost ahead, or you'll boost to you'll boost into water that can freeze you and make you lose rings. And you'll boost into walls that stop you and stuff. You gotta jump into the pink thing at the end in order to make yourself get out of the boss. But you can only hit it once. Can't hit it multiple times. This just pads it out. I mean, it looks impressive, but you're just waiting, standing still, not really doing anything. But yeah, you jump into that thing, and then, again, you can't just jump right into it. One of the annoying things about this, aside from the constant dead ends, like, how was I supposed to know that was a dead end, especially on the first time? But yeah, you jump down here, do slow platforming, and you gotta constantly jump and land on these things. And they're moving targets, which is kind of hard to do. It reminds me of Super Mario Bros. 2. I guess it's a fun platforming challenge, but not really something. And look at this, a low ceiling, and it shoots it out, and so you can be guaranteed to get hit. Like, I don't really think that's fair. The annoying thing about being inside of that whale is that the maximum amount of time you can have is 30 seconds. Even though you can jump into the blue things on the walls to get more time, but if you already have a whole bunch of time already, then jumping into them won't really help you at all, because you'll feel like you got cheated out of time. You can't just constantly jump into the blue things and destroy them. Like, I'm at 25 seconds right now, and I only got like 4 seconds from that. And you gotta be careful around these icicles because they fall. And obviously the icy floor makes you more slippery, so it's easier to fall down and have to repeat stuff you already did because of them. Like this one. And of course, if you don't land on the missiles exactly right, they'll blow up on you. And like, it is a good thing that you can get more time, but on my first playthrough of this, when I first played this, for some reason I didn't get the idea that I could get more time by jumping into those blue things. I don't know why, but I guess it is a good positive aspect of this boss that it is entirely possible to beat it without ever getting more time. So that's good. But it's like, it kind of feels like it ruins the point of having a whole bunch of blue things in one whale, when it's like only one of them can really be taken advantage of, because you got like 9 seconds on the clock and you jump into one and that gives you 30 seconds. Except it only gives you like 20 seconds, because you can only have a maximum of 29 seconds. Like, I don't really like this boss. Like, I don't know. It's pretty boring and padded out. It feels like a Sonic CD boss, because it forces you to do a platforming challenge to beat it. And like people say, Rush Adventure has more platforming, but I mean, it's good physics for it, because you can stop instantly midair. Oh, come on! This would have been such a badass action moment where like Blaze creates fire to save the Vikings, and somehow that doesn't kill them by making them go from hypothermic to really warm immediately. But it would have been so cool to actually see Blaze melt the ice to save the Vikings. But instead it just fades to black rather than animate anything. And I hate the way the Vikings look. They've got tiny heads that are too small for their bodies. They've got beady eyes that are constantly staring, never blinking, like Big the Cat. And they've got like horn helmets in a pathetic attempt to try to make them look like Vikings. Like, when I first heard about them, I assumed that they would be humans. And as much as people complain about humans in Sonic games, even though Eggman is one, I think I would have preferred to have human Vikings than polar bears that talk with such annoying speech that, like, I think even Marine speaks in a less annoying way than the polar bears do. Because at least she doesn't say the word yup at the end of every sentence. The polar bears speak like hillbillies that are drunk off moonshine. I can't take them seriously at all. And talking to the NPCs, like talking to the polar bear that appears in the hub world, it kind of makes it pretty obvious that they're the only non-koala NPCs. Because when you talk to them, their text box blocks their head because they're so tall. So it's kind of weird. Oh boy, the submarine was made. I'm so happy. And of course it's not called the Sea Fox because screw references to the Game Gear games apparently. And it's weird, like they're talking about Sky Babylon as if you haven't beaten it yet. Because at some point, by the time of Sky Babylon, the game inexplicably becomes a little non-linear, that you can choose to do Blizzard Peaks before Sky Babylon. But I guess the game expects you to do Blizzard Peaks first. Doesn't really have a script that accounts for that. I mean, it's weird because they assume that you do the harder level first. But yeah. You got this guy, and you can pay him to make decorations on your island. This is actually one of my favorite things about this game. It feels so satisfying being able to decorate the island, to add new things to it. Like, it can be a great reward for completing missions. I mean, it really incentivizes you to do them. Like, it feels so great adding to the island like this. And you notice in Seagull Beach that there's also a sound test guy. And the annoying thing is, you have to complete missions to unlock all the sound test songs. Why can't they just all be unlocked from the very beginning? And you don't get all of the missions for the Soul Emeralds all at once. I really don't know what they're thinking with these polar bears. It's so derpy looking. And I'm going to be showing off the Viking Cup in its entirety later on. Long story short, it's pretty hard. The wave cyclone thing is kind of boring, but the rest of it is just frustrating. And your reward for beating all the Viking Cup missions? Absolutely nothing! See you for the next part.